Hello to my wonderful listeners. One Family TV wala mutanale nan kotenke. Mbadiŋolu bile keta luntide me ye lon ko I ka fo me ye ko dialogue me ye lon ko wala keta political dialogue tide me ye lon ko bi yake stay house oto de politicianol de bari mbadiŋolu anni la diamol ta na lamoyde UDP ye menci me ye lon ko wala keta alaji S Daboti ate diamutale de Mama Kande ate fana mo molati me ye lon ko adiamuta de Halifa Sallah ate fana mo molati me ye lon ko adiamuta de ani ikafo meye ko Hamad Ba ate fana mo molati me yalon ko afana ndiyam tan en dulantole de bar mbadi ngolu annela diamol ta na lamoy ani hakilola mbadi ngolu unkane e lamoy ani jusola.
In the meeting, in the 2016 coalition dialogue, I was honored the team's tax by our UDP flag bearer, who is now the current sitting president, to represent him in that dialogue leading to the signing of the coalition agreement. When many thought that dialogue, the process was a futile exercise, I had the belief then it would be possible. Indeed, it was possible. If I've been honored to be participating in another important dialogue of that nature, I believe my personality and representation in that, and now in this, I am saying it is going to be possible. Honorable, Your Excellency, and the Vice President, this dialogue, as earlier on alluded by the moderator, people ask why now? And he asks why not now? Then I add, it's better late than never. The moderator rightly alluded, facing with the current realities, both national and sub-regional, there is a need for this dialogue. And really, that is the situation. If we should say, why now? It could not have a better time, come at a better time than now. We are aiming to have the Gambia that we can all yearn and live proudly as Gambians. This was the anticipation in 2016. We are still yearning and standing by that to see that dream we had in 2016 is realized. Your Excellency, to have peaceful country that key stakeholders, the politicians, our religious leaders, of course, in general, the citizenry are very important. In this process, all efforts must be done to ensure all are represented. I understand today is the launching where we are reflecting on the team. And also we'll have another day where we'll have broad participation, about 500 members. I would say we should not limit to that. We should go beyond that. Let it be a form of national consultation. When we have the National Preparatory Committee, I would not know whether the institution that represents the political parties is part of this committee. If not, it can be included. Then we task this committee to do thorough national consultation, region by region. We should not limit to only the gathering that we'll have on the 16th. It should go beyond that. so that all voices and all concerns are heard. Your Excellency, our cultural norms and values, the Gambia, we are always promoted that we are among the best in terms of culture and values. Upholding this, that should be an utmost concern. Many a time, it is our young folks, and I believe the way things are going, we need to put our cultural norms and values to the knowledge of our young people. Honorable, Your Excellency, if you go to our communities, usually we tend to get disputes here and there as a result of land management. We have in place what is called Land Commission. I'm not sure whether the Land Commission is functioning. If not, or if so, it is not as expected. If we want to do away with violence in our communities, the issue of the land, the policy around the land should be looked into. Your Excellency, a hungry man is an angry man. Nowadays, people are hungry. And people, if they are hungry, they'll be angry. Food self-sufficiency, how that can be addressed, should be an utmost responsibility and concern. It is not only about management, but also about generation. How do we maximize our production base? That is what we can look into when our people are hungry and they become angry, to silence them down. Your Excellency, Anti-Corruption Act is in place. We should have the political will and commitment in fighting against corruption. The Anti-Corruption Commission should be enforced and should not also come to be like the Land Commission. The sovereignty of the Gambia should not and must not be compromised. There must be discipline in our institutions, and as civil servants, we should adhere to disciplinary rules. We should be committed to our work. I welcome the creation of the new ministry. I was thinking that when it comes, that aspect of indiscipline in our civil society will be addressed. But I'm yet to see any meaningful move towards that. And finally, action speaks louder than voice. We are here, we launch for a commitment of what we call national dialogue to have peace and stability in this country. If we do this work, at the end we'll have reports, resolutions. More importantly, the implementation of the outcome of this engagement. Your Excellency, people will say, we have commissions, and the commission will have reports, but implementation of these reports are usually the problem. Will this the dialogue also will not follow the same pattern? Political tolerance above everything. You are the sitting president. Those who are unfortunate and their parties, they are the opposition. Our role is to serve as watchdogs. Criticize your programs, your policies. Whether you will see that to be constructive or otherwise, we may differ, but that's our role. Your position is not to be having any ill feeling against anyone against such criticisms, but to defend your policies and your programs. Don't see any opposition as your enemy, but rather your opponents, but rather the same brothers and sisters. When I say this, I conclude that I did send a political message to my president. And I'm not sure whether he heard that message. If I've been given this opportunity, I want to recollect that message. If you are on state functions, take consideration what appears to be state functions, state issues are addressed. We leave aside the political issues. And I want to recollect that. I feel very troubled when I see my brother making very uncomfortable statements against my father, who is his father. I feel very comfortable. I feel very comfortable if I see my father criticizing and my brother defending his program. I feel very comfortable, but very uncomfortable if it should be the otherwise. I'm appealing the sonly and the fatherly relationship should exist for peaceful coexistence between the two.
Parliamentarians, members of political parties, members of the press, and all those here present, including the Chief of Staff, the Director of Press, Director of Protocol, Security, and all other protocol respectfully observed. Mr. President, I want to remind this gathering that this is not the Lancaster House talks that was led by politicians to work for the independence of the Gambia. These are talks that are meant for us to discuss and chart the way forward to better our democracy and to see how we can improve on the livelihood of the Gambian people. And we must also appreciate it is a very difficult task. Political dialogue is not easy anywhere in the world. I have witnessed it. I'm one of those who led the ECOWAS parliamentarians and ECOWAS commission members to the political dialogue in Lome. And we've witnessed the political dialogue in Nairobi that led to the new constitution. We've seen what happened in Senegal from the 80s, from the Abdou Diouf to the Wadas, how they worked on their electoral process through political dialogue. We've seen political dialogue in many parts of Africa and many parts of the world. If anybody thinks that this journey is an easy journey, you are making a mistake. In a political dialogue, we must give and take. We must accept the reality that there is a need to address the issues that divide us, to address the issues that make differences in the way we live and the way we work for the betterment of our country. So it is not an easy journey. Let's all be prepared for that journey. And therefore, on that note, before I proceed, I must congratulate the President of the Republic for accepting a political dialogue to better our polity in the country. I congratulate you, Mr. President, for that visionary idea and for taking up the bull by the horn to call on all political parties to come and sit down and discuss and chart the way forward. On that note, Mr. President, in a gathering like this, I always feel nostalgic. When I see my colleagues sitting down next to me and I fail to see the likes of Omar Jallo, Mr. Femi Peters, Lamin Diba and others, I remembered in 2016 when we all used to sit together, discuss the issues of this country that led us to where we are today. I feel that they deserve prayers for all of us, that they have parted, they've gone, they've played their role. I please would request, if permitted, that before we leave this gathering, that we pray for those people and others that I have not named who have been with us, and today they've gone and they sacrificed all their life and did everything they could to participate in their country. Mr. President, just to summarize, since I don't have enough time to deliberate on these issues, I think the first role that we need to do in every parliamentary democracy, looking at how we harmonize our issues. We must look at the Gambian context. Today, I believe that at the end of this program, the management of state resources should be a key pillar in the discussion of these things. How do we discuss the issue of the management, physical management of state resources, and how do we manage and discuss the issue of land management and land usage in the Gambia? We must accept that the issue of land is becoming a threatening national security issue that needs to be discussed by everybody, so that at the end of the day, the government of the Gambia would do what its people want them to do. The issue of land cannot be brushed aside whilst we are sitting here. The issue of religious coexistence must be an issue that we have to address. We cannot allow few people picking up microphones, insulting and abusing others because they have an opportunity to speak. We must copy what happened in other countries, where people are licensed to speak, where you cannot just pick up a microphone and preach and insult others. The religious coexistence that we have enjoyed in this country, we cannot allow few people to destroy it. I remind you, when Pope John Paul came to this country, when he looked back at the central mosque he saw when he was at the St. Augustine, he asked, what is that? They told him it was a church. He said, I have never seen a central church, such a religious country, opposite a grand mosque. And that he praised the Gambia for being very religious. We cannot destroy that. We need to keep that. Just to us up, we must also have a level playing field in the polity. We must discuss the electoral process. We must make sure that everybody participates in the process and feel that you have been fairly treated, and where we need to amend laws, we have to amend laws to make sure the system is free and fair for everybody. So at the end of the day, when results are declared, we are obliged to accept the results. And that is important for us. And the other one, the educational system, we have to look at it. We must have an educational system that can cater for our youth and for our young. We must address the issue of backway not by talking, by looking at the causes of it. We need to create people with knowledge and skills that they can have hope in our society and stay in their country to deliver. Or wherever we export their skills, it will yield us benefit, and not to see our people dying at sea. We must also, in our political debate, be responsible the way we talk, be responsible the way we attack, be responsible the way we send our views. You cannot use social media, be abusing and insulting people and thinking that you are doing politics. You are doing no good to your country, but doing harm to your country. Everybody has a view to express. Everybody has a view to express, but it's in the manner that you are expressing this view. And in doing so, we must protect our women. We must make sure our women are protected during our debates. We cannot afford to be abusing them, calling them all sorts of names. With whatever they do, it's something that they have done with men. We must open up the political space, not by word of mouth, by making sure that our women feel comfortable, not being intimidated and abused when they participate in politics. One again, just before I give you the floor, we must make sure security and stability is key in our governance system. We must make sure that we create peace in the country. When we went to Guinea-Conakry, just to give you an example, as soon as we landed in the country, I told the president it seems that something is wrong in this country. Because since we left the airport, I've seen nobody rising and supporting this president. And all of a sudden, we saw there was a coup. And what happened? The foreign minister told me, he's been telling the opposition, don't encourage instability. When instability comes, you all become victims. Today, all of them are in exile. All of those who are instigating instability are in exile. Let's keep our democracy. We thank our armies. We thank the Gambian army and the African armies. They've done well to liberate Africa. They are good in changing government, but they are very bad in managing countries. We want them to stay away from our politics and our governance. We want them to stay our way. Parliamentarians.
Good morning, Your Excellency. First of all, I want to thank His Excellency, the President of the Republic of the Gambia, and all the organizing members of this national dialogue. This is a dream come true for me. My name is Honorable Mama Kande, Secretary General and Party Leader of the Gambia Democratic Congress. Your Excellency, I'm very proud and happy today. Look at these people here. Our brothers, our sisters. This is the Gambia. This is the Gambia that we want to see. This is the Gambia that we want our future leaders of this country to emulate from. I believe it is made very clear that when it is an issue of national interest, everyone here will have the time to contribute his or her quota towards national development. We are here one people. There can be no hatred between us here. There can be no war between us here. Gambia needs to set an example in Africa. The size of our country does not matter here. Democracy does not belong to any nation or individual. We all can have our democracy in a way that suits our people. And today, Mr. President, I'm very proud of you and I thank you for taking this initiative and bringing Gambians together. It has been I have been calling for this for years, personally. None of us here want to see this country in fire. We all want to lead this country, but to lead a better Gambia. And I believe this is just the beginning, Mr. President. I have been talking about this, and I would not want you to stop here. Let this be a continuous process and to make sure that the whole world will learn from us. We have seen what is happening in Africa. There are a variety of issues that need to be discussed. There are a lot of challenges in this country that need to be discussed. So I believe it is just not possible to have it within 3 or 5 minutes. But this is just the beginning. Let's create more room for ourselves as a nation, bring our ideas together to move this country forward. There are a lot of challenges in this country. A lot of challenges, so we will not have time to discuss all this. But I can say that this is the beginning and the doors are open, and I believe it is not going to stop here. I even went to a level to propose to you, Mr. President, that on your Meet the People store, it's a constitutional mandate, it's a requirement. Invite all political party leaders. It is not a political tour. Invite all political party leaders. Let us be there together and the whole world will see that we are one people. In this way, we will do away with the politic of hatred, politic of tribalism, politic of religion. The moderator have said it here, that we are losing what the Gambia is known for was the peace and stability and the smiling coast of West Africa. Why are we losing that? Why is it that no Gambian is safe at the moment? People are killed left, right, and center. This is not our culture. I believe all of us together we can make a change for better Gambia. We have to protect our women, our children, and our sovereignty as a nation. So, on this note, I don't want to take your time. I hope that there will be a time created for all of us where we can bring in more ideas, put our hands on deck together to move this country forward. I thank you.
But that collective responsibility must be contextualized. It is the role of a government to serve the people. It is the role of the opposition to aim to serve the people. And that opposition may be different from the government in form or content. So there is nothing wrong in having an opposition. They have different roles. But essentially the discourse here is not to transform a dialogue into a partisan mechanism for discourse with the people. So if this discourse is to be properly situated, we must all put partisan hats aside and look at the nation and deal with issues in such a way that the sitting government or any other government will deem those issues to be pertinent to the development of our country and the stability of the state. In that regard, we must bear in mind that stability of nations, stability of the state, use of resources must rest on 4 pillars. The first pillar is culture. Not our general culture, but the national culture. We have to develop, we have to have an educational system. There must be institutions of socialization. We must train the people who are to serve as service deliverers, the nurses, the teachers, the technicians of all sectors of society. And if we look at our civil service, these are the people who will constitute that service sector. We must train them. We must nurture them. We must nurture sovereign citizens so that we become one, independent of our sex, independent of our religion, independent of our ethno-linguistic groups. We must become Gambians. But to do that, we must train them. That is why the educational system must be interrogated. Are we really training sovereign Gambians? Are we really nurturing sovereign Gambians who love country and people? That is the trajectory. And those people are the people who would be the builders of the nation that we hope to develop. Number 2, it is essential to have that social pillar. Honorable members here, Your Excellency the President, we all know that the issue of life expectancy is important. Look at the number of people who are passing away. How do we increase the longevity of their lives? We look at child mortality, maternal mortality, and it is important to improve the quality of our data, because many people in our society have this privacy and respect for the dead that many will bury without informing the state. So how can we ensure that everybody who passes away would be recorded so that we have really improved data and know the causes of death so that we'll know how to really prevent many of the deaths? That is important. The issue of poverty. If we say half the population are living in abject, how do we address those issues? That is important. But we must have the data and then look for ways and means of addressing the issues of poverty. The next element is the economy. That economic foundation all of us must bear in mind that there are imbalances between imports and exports, imbalances between revenue and expenditure. We must take note of this. What is responsible for that? We look at remittances, they are in fact more than even our earnings from imports. So we must look at all this, and we must look at all these correlations in order to find out why are we not able to build an economy which will move away merely from taxation in rendering services to be able to build a productive base to be able to address all the concerns. These are issues, national issues we should address. Not only that, it is important for us to bear in mind that the social issues are very significant. But we must move to the political issue, my last consideration. Because that is the state that we have to conserve. And we all know that overstay in office, unconstitutional takeover of office, have also been a disease in our sub-region and causing a menace. So we should sit down and look at these two issues: unconstitutional overstay in office, unconstitutional assumption of office. How do we save the Gambia from such a reality? How can we debate on our constitution, which we should now put to the fore, because it helps us to build a polity that we own? And we can all discuss this in order to shape a future that we own. So my take here is that this is the beginning of a very important exercise. The beginning of a conversation among a people to determine the destiny of a country that we own. Inclusiveness is necessary at this stage. And inviting all of us here is starting that process of a national conversation to determine whether you are in office or outside of office, what is your role in helping to build a stable state, a stable country, the harnessing of resources in order for all of us to benefit. I don't know how much time I have, but I would like to put this across, that we are talking about management of resources. But the real issue is generation of resources and allocation of resources. In my home, every morning, women will come from all over the Combos and descend on my street. And they are selling without urinals, without water, under the hot sun. Every single day, I cannot even get out of my camper. So, what is the relation between central and local government? Is the structure that we have in resource allocation really the appropriate one? How do we ensure a balanced and proportional allocation of the resources of the land? Don't we need to change our budgeting system so that whatever is at the local level will be budgeted for at the national level, and we allocate resources? Former Vice President.
Colleagues, party leaders, cabinet ministers here present, members of the National Assembly present, security chiefs, Commissioner General, eminent guests, Assalamu alaikum. Fellow Gambians, on 18th February 1965, Gambians in their thousands turned out to the Makati Square to witness the proceedings of a historic occasion. Predominant in the hearts of most Gambians were the emotions of happiness and amazement. Some were happy because Gambians have now assumed the mantle of leadership, while others were amazed at the subjugation of a mighty power to the persistent demands of a small and tiny African country for nationhood. Your Excellencies, at the time, the Gambia was deemed an improbable nation. The Gambia defied all of the negative predictions that were made about the sustainability and the viability of our nation. With very limited resources and human resources, material and human resources, we were able to lift the Gambia out of difficult circumstances. And over a period of time, the Gambia became the peace headquarters of Africa, the improbable nation, creating significant impact. And not only that, after having found our feet out of the initial difficulties of building a new nation, with some challenges in terms of the economy, the Gambia established a successful economy. And our experience in the construction of that economy became a lesson for other countries in the Sahel. Our democracy became some of the most attractive export of the Gambia. It was not a perfect system, but it was one of the best in the continent. And then came 1994, when the Gambia embarked or alighted into a vehicle and then engaged a permanent reverse gear. That may be a matter of controversy. But then we had to fight our second war of independence in 2016 in order to launch what we call the New Gambia. So indeed, we do not have any major political crisis in this country today. There is no civil war, and there is no crisis really that would change the character of our governance system in any shape or form. The Gambia remains a peaceful democracy. So why the need for a dialogue? It is very important, because as a nation democracy, democracy is the greatest political experiment in the history of mankind. We must continue to improve our democracy. So the dialogue seeks to consolidate our emerging democracy. And in that sense, Your Excellency, we feel very honored and privileged to be participating in this process. We are talking about preserving the nation, safeguarding the state, and securing resources. You cannot preserve the nation if you do not safeguard the nation. You cannot safeguard the nation if you do not seek to preserve the nation. And all of these require effective management of our resources, effective public finance management of our resources. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Gambia has had one major problem throughout its history: the crisis of leadership. The crisis of leadership. The manner in which we conduct our politics has been responsible for overheating of the polity. The Gambia Moral Congress has at its core foundation the imperative to restore morality, the morality as a content of politics. When you practice politics with morality, then the issue of preserving the state will be the core of our governance system. When we practice without morality, then accountability and responsibility fly through the window. What we need is a soul-searching as a nation. Responsibility becomes collective when each of us assumes what each of us ought to perform. Collective responsibility in preserving the nation requires strengthening our institutions. It requires effective service delivery by public and civil service. It requires effective enforcement of the rule of law, a strong, vibrant, independent judiciary. It requires a strong, vibrant private sector. None of these are possible if we do not have consensus citizens, if we do not take ownership of our country. It is the lack of ownership which is reflected through the lack of practice, through the lack of politics of morality that is responsible for a lot of the inefficiencies we experience everywhere else. And that is why the lack of ownership of our nation, that is why it becomes easy for those of us, for those in the civil service, to go to office late. I've worked with the President. His Excellency is always present at his desk before 8 o'clock and would not go home before 5 o'clock every single day. Unfortunately, this cannot be said of the civil service. And we must speak truth to each other. When we talk about incompetence, you are not talking about the President is not performing, because the President alone cannot do everything. The civil services, hundreds, a few thousands, constituted by Gambians. We go to office late. Our daily tasks are not effectively executed. You have a file that you need to work on. You have a file that should take a day, will end up taking a whole week. It is not the responsibility of the President that you refuse to execute your responsibility. To work on a file that should take you an hour will take a whole day. It is not the responsibility of the President alone that you go to office late and you are paid on time. And all these things are common phenomena in the civil service. It is not the responsibility of the President alone. When you need to perform an obligation, you demand incentive for that obligation to be performed. All these are matters of public nature that we must talk about. It is not the responsibility of the President that we scheme travels in order to earn per diems. It is not the responsibility of the President. I understand. I've calculated our time, so I'm coming down now. I'll soon conclude. It is not the responsibility of the President that when there are tenders, those of us in the private sector would undermine the process by trying to corrupt members of the tender committee. So in terms of corruption, in terms of public finance management, in terms of public accountability, it is the whole nation that is culpable. When we talk about corruption, corruption demands a giver and a receiver. If you do not give, there will be no receiver. And we have laws. When we talk about security, everybody must be an ambassador of security. If you give to the traffic officer on the beat, on the road, because you do not have a driver's license or you do not have insurance, you are encouraging crime. And it is we, the citizens, who are guilty of this performance. So let us look at ourselves. Let us reflect as a nation. Let us put the blame where the blame is. As members of a partner party, like you said, and I agree with that, I will no longer use opposition. As members of partner parties, let us criticize constructively. And also, I urge the government on the other side to be more responsive. And this dialogue, Your Excellency, you have indicated your willingness to receive new ideas, to open up. But then we must always understand that the type of following we attract reflects the type of leader we have in political parties. If the leadership is conscientious and morally obligated, the followers will follow. So we must look at ourselves critically and observe that changes need to be effected internally within political parties, because political parties are government in waiting. If we intend to govern, we must reform the way we conduct our politics before we assume the mantle of leadership. The medium is small, but Your Excellency, I want to encourage this type of dialogue to continue. At the Gambia Moral Congress, we believe politics without morality will lead this country down the drain. Politics with morality will do away with dishonesty, will do away with corruption and stealing, will do away with cheating, and will do away with all other vices that beset this country. Honest politics is easy to perform than dishonest politics. It is easy to praise than insult.